All right, are you ready for it? What's the best keyword? What is the best keyword to use in a Google Ads campaign? And there's three types. So let's start with the three types of keywords, and we'll go through what I believe, where we've evolved, and where I think we're going. So there's three types of keywords. There's a broad match keyword, which just is a straight up keyword that sort of gives Google carte blanche, so to speak, to go out and find stuff. And let's use the same example that I learned on Google Ads 15 years ago. So they used to talk about shoes. So if you wanted to do ads for shoes or homes, you would do buy shoes or shoes. That's a broad match keyword. If you had a kind of shoe that you wanted to sell, then you would do potentially a phrase match. And what a phrase match is, it goes from broad to phrase. Phrase gives you a little bit of a buffer and says, hey, I would like these shoes to be red. So in quotations, you would do red shoes, right? So let's say after you do that makes sure that you don't go and show blue shoes or white shoes or black shoes. It's red shoes. So that's phrase match. Number 3 is going to be an exact match. And in an exact match, you're going to have another modifier. So let's say you want to sell red men's shoes. So you would do brackets around it, and it would be red men's shoes. Now let's go back into phrase match and talk a little bit about that before we go into exact. When you did red shoes, it allows Google to say, okay, we need red and shoes in this conversation. So if somebody goes out and searches for red women's shoes, high heel red shoes, red basketball shoes, all of those are going to show up in that search result. So if you're bidding, you might show up for stuff you don't want. So the more precise you get with your keyword, or long tail as people like to call it, the longer tail the keyword that you're bidding on, the more precise it is, the less search volume there is. The bidding gets tighter potentially. And you might be just bidding against certain people for that exception. So when we go deeper into exact match and you say red men's basketball shoes, then you've got all these adjectives that have added into it. It's taking your search down. So let's say there's 5 million searches a day for shoes, which I guarantee there's a lot more. There's going to be, let's say, 1 million searches for red shoes each day. These are just numbers I'm throwing out to give you an example. If you said red men's basketball shoes, there might be 1,000 searches. If you said size 13 red men's basketball shoes, which I would require, you're probably going to have maybe 100, maybe 200 searches, right? So the more precise you get, the more that funnel gets tighter and tighter and tighter into what's in there. So in our world, in the real estate world, then we're going to be talking about 2-story homes under $200,000. Homes for sale in Scottsdale for less than $1 million. So don't get it twisted. You can't buy a house for much under $1 million in Scottsdale, but those are the modifiers. So when you're doing those modifiers, and let's say we've got a client in Scottsdale that wants to generate leads, we can't go in and say 5-bedroom home for sale in Scottsdale, because the search volume in there is going to be very minimal. Now we do put that out there, and we can put that out there in an exact match or a phrase match or a broad match. Now what happens with that is Google takes their exception and they decide what to do with it. So let's sort of unpack that. Once you have your broad, your phrase, and your exact, you're going to go out and let's say you go, I'm going to do a broad match keyword for 5-bedroom home in Scottsdale, for sale in Scottsdale, right? So 5-bedroom home for sale in Scottsdale. If you do a broad match, Google is going to offer you these answers: 5-bedroom Airbnb, home for sale in Chandler, which is not Scottsdale, condos for sale in Scottsdale, $200,000 homes for sale in Scottsdale. So it's getting some of it. So when people talk about giving Google, giving Google your money and saying they probably know best and they know what I want, they don't. They really don't. They know that you want something to do with a house and a home, but you don't want something to do with condo. You don't want something to do with apartment. You really don't want to deal with Airbnb. So when you're doing the broad and you're doing that broad match, you tend to get a lot of stuff and a lot of noise coming through, and those are clicks. They'll show impressions, but they'll also show up as clicks, which cost you money. Impressions doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't cost you anything to browse, cost you something to buy, right? So that's why we used to, and I say used to, there's always changes when it comes to Google, right? In 2023, we use predominantly a phrase match and exact match. And where we do with that is we get more precise with it. We talk about the, again, 5-bedroom home for sale, Scottsdale, right? In Scottsdale. You don't really need to have that in that phrase because nowadays Google's taking a little bit more liberty and taking a little bit less power away from the exact and phrase matches and says it's similar to exact or similar to and phrase similar to. So they take a liberty of saying, well, you didn't say in, or you didn't say. You could go and put in Scottsdale home sale 5-bed, and it'll say, okay, well, if you made that an exact match, we're pretty sure you want a 5-bedroom home for sale in Scottsdale, which is the properly typed out version of it. Or you might transpose that. You might do it opposite, right? Scottsdale homes for sale with 5 bedrooms. That is going to be pretty much the same exact phrase, just worded differently and in a different pattern, but it's all those keywords together. So Google looks at that as an exact match and says, yep, that's exactly what you're looking for. And it is to a point. That's why we're okay with bidding a little bit more on exact match keywords than we are with phrase, and then we would be with broads. So the real question is, what is the most important keyword in the entire landscape of Google or Microsoft for that matter? And the answer to that question is none of those. It is actually a negative keyword term. And what negative keyword terms do is they give you a definite buffer in telling Google or Microsoft where you want your traffic to flow. And what I mean by that is if you do a negative keyword of condos or townhouses or townhomes, then you know for a fact that you're only going to come up in search for single family home, people looking for a single family home, or duplex if you don't put duplex in there as negative. So the most important keywords are typically negative keyword sets. So you look at it and you say, okay, we have phrase, broad, exacts, they're all over the board. And in 2023, we've tested and actually had some success with, and there's more testing. We always test. It's always it depends, and it's always let's test. But we can do a broad match ad group that gives us a pretty good set of results based on how strong of a negative keyword batch that we run, right? So if we've got a strong negative keyword list for that ad group, then we are all but guaranteeing that the keywords that we want to flow in are going to flow in. So it's like having a filter on that, right? You're basically saying to Google, I want everything. Here's my keyword sets. But if you bring it in and it goes a little bit haywire, the biggest thing when you're doing a broad match, you've got to be pretty heavy-handed on adding to your negative keywords list as well. Because if you think about that, if you start to do just homes for sale, then you don't have that buffer and saying, is it Scottsdale, is it Chandler, is it Phoenix? Again, using that metro as an example, you've got to put in Chandler and Phoenix and Gilbert, Mesa, Tempe, all those surrounding cities as negatives because you don't want that to come through. And the other crazy thing is somebody asked us, what are the craziest keywords you have in your negative swipe file? Cats and dogs. Honestly, cats and dogs, because people are looking for dogs for sale in Scottsdale, right? Because they want to go buy a new pet. So Google's AI, as much as everybody wants to talk about how great it is in this Performance Max, doing so many amazing things for you and for your campaigns, it can't decipher a person as a home buyer or a pet buyer. So think about that. It cannot tell the difference between the two. We've had that traffic flow through as recent as a couple of months ago. So is it getting better? Yeah, it's getting better. Is it perfect, and should we give Google our money and just let them do what they want? No, we certainly should not. We need to keep an eye on those search terms as they come through, because cats and dogs will be falling out of the sky and you're spending money on it for no reason. So keep that in mind, the 3 different subsets. Everything can be sort of done the way you want it. Everything's customized based on what the clients want typically. But when you're going and building these out, know for a fact that you have to get heavy-handed with your negative keyword sets, or you're going to be advertising for stuff that you really don't want to. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let us know. I'd love to answer those in the comments, and you reach out to us if you want us to do a little bit of audit for you, or if you have questions about how to run your campaigns, or you want us at Driven Leads to run the campaigns for you. If not, have a great day, and I hope you enjoy this video.